Welcome Capricorn to your in-depth monthly forecast for June 2024 for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now I'm showing the event chart right at the start of the month, which gives us a lot of information. We need to be mindful of the role of your ruler. Saturn continues in the sign of Pisces. Pisces is a water sign. It's shimmering, it's mystical, it can be to do with healing. But for you, the third house is everyday communication. If you have encountered some inhibitions in your connections to people over the last year, it might be because you need to bring into play those more feeling energies that Pisces presents. And because Saturn can be quite cautious, perhaps at times you've not quite known how to respond to certain interactions. Now Neptune, the planet of dreams, which rules the sign of Pisces, forges a brilliant link at the start of this month to the other co-ruler of Pisces, Jupiter. But Neptune's right on the fourth house cusp, suggesting it's going to be particularly influential for you this month. So essentially, and particularly as it's very close to the moon, it's important that you do use your imagination, but you're not fearful about embracing the more spiritual or psychological dimension. That said, Jupiter is back in the sign of Gemini for the first time in 12 years. Jupiter's about expansion, but it can be about good fortune. But the sixth house, Gemini for you, a communicational sign, is very much about life's practicalities, but it can also be about obligations and responsibilities, but critically work. But I want you to look at the position of Pluto. Pluto's at 1 degrees and 54. That's angling in a near perfect link to Jupiter. Jupiter's at 1 degree and 24 in the sign of Gemini. Now both are in air signs, so the more conversation you have about money, Pluto, your self-worth, your value, Pluto, with Jupiter, where you can apply those qualities, perhaps through your work, perhaps through your own business, perhaps through squeezing more from the resources you already have. So in other words, being more imaginative about marshalling those resources more efficiently and using the growth energy of Jupiter in a very dynamic way can see you coming into this new month suddenly making things work for you more efficiently. Now, of course, because you are usually a very, very hard-working sign, you're never usually lacking in application. But what you also have at the start of this month, Capricorn, is some inspiration coming from Mercury's connection to Uranus. Uranus, full-time since March 2019, has been giving you an enormous amount of encouragement to break free from any self-limiting thinking, or perhaps the conditioning that was put into you when you were very young to be very dutiful, to be very hardworking. They're great qualities, but not if it's pulverizing our passion. So Uranus is asking you in this conjunction with Mercury, which peaked at the end of last month, as you come into this month, to keep having the confidence to experiment. That will be very positive for you. Now, it's also important to be mindful of the other players in the sign of Gemini, very close to Jupiter, not least, of course, the Sun. The Sun's at the heart of all our existences, and it's just at 11 degrees in the sign of Gemini. But that's into the second decan of that sign, subruled by Venus. Venus can be about money, but it also can be about relationships. And Venus itself is only 1 degree away from the Sun. In fact, they're going to be aligning through the first 2 weeks of this month within 3 degrees and also coalescing around the new moon of the 6th of June. What this means is, in any situation that you find yourself, if you can work on the people aspect, it will be very positive for you. So if you apply for a job, you've got these sparkling ideas, you've got this immense experience, a lot of skills, but it's how you interact with your colleagues that actually is probably going to be just as important. So Venus and the Sun along with the more buoyant energies of Jupiter, are giving you an enormous opportunity at the start of this month to make a part of your life work better. Now, it could be through employment, that's the 6th house, but the 6th house can also be about things like diet, fitness, can also be about our love of pets. So with Venus so much in the picture, if you did get yourself a new pet over the next 4 weeks, the chances are this is going to be a very loved addition to the family. But seriously, Jupiter's about growth, but the 6th house asks us to work with the details. And Jupiter is also detrimented in the sign of Gemini. Gemini likes quick communications. Jupiter likes the big picture. So here it's being asked to engage in a faster way than it's used to. But in the 6th house, very Virgoan, if you can use that communication and that desire to improve things in a very practical way, something can grow and improve for you. Not just this month, but over the next year too. So if you have been battling low vitality or some chronic health conditions, Jupiter can be very, very helpful to you over this next year. And I really hope you see an improvement if so. We just need to be mindful of house 4. That's very much to do with our home and emotion. Because Mars is there, this could still see you pretty busy making some changes. It's very close to Chiron. Chiron in the 4th house is very tender. If there is someone in your family or close to you that you tend to be very supportive to, but you don't feel that you get very much back, Mars could see you steam over with frustration. The problem with Chiron is that even if we are deserving of something more, sometimes it just doesn't actually materialize. One of the best ways to work with Chiron is to choke off our expectation of getting anything back. But if there is something you want to work on around your emotional health, Mars being close to Chiron can see you proactive in that regard. So that gives you the background as we come into this month. But on the 3rd, Mercury moves to Gemini. It rules this sign, so it's going to really sparkle in its presence here, but it immediately links with Jupiter. If you are having an interview on the 3rd, or meeting someone influential, or you're offering a service, the chances are that you can articulate that with enthusiasm and sparkle. But also the pair of them link back to Pluto exactly. The 3rd of June is probably one of the most influential days of this whole year, because Pluto and Jupiter have not aligned through these two air signs for over 220 years. Because Pluto is pushing you to work at reforming your income, or reforming your consumption of resources, or reforming your sense of self-worth, it could be by being perhaps a little bit more virtuous, which is kind of anti-Jupiterian energy. Jupiter likes to indulge to the max, but actually if you can be quite self-disciplined and work in that very structured way that you're so good at doing, you can balance Jupiter's energy out, not have overblown expectations of what he can bring for you, and actually this can be a very, very potent and helpful influence. And it's going to really provide a backdrop for the first 11 days of this month. But then on the 6th, we have that new moon. And as I mentioned, very close to Venus. If you are a lover of animals, this could be a wonderful time to spend time with your favourite pet, or to get that new addition. But the 6th house can also be around our colleagues, and there may be someone that you're really chiming with at this time. It doesn't have to be romantic, but if you are socialising more, that actually can be something you really enjoy. But also the 6th house is a representative of aunts and uncles. If you're pretty fond of someone who's a member of your extended family like that, you may want to spend more time with them at that moment. But from the 5th to the 12th, this is when your ruler starts to make its presence really felt, because Saturn squares up with both the Sun and also Venus. Saturn in the 3rd house is wanting you to be very efficient about your thoughts, but also your use of your energy. The 6th house wants you to be a bit more virtuous. The truth is, we can't necessarily pack in everything we want to achieve, so it's going to be important across those days to prioritize. Because with Jupiter in the mix, the potential to bite off more than we can really proverbially chew is going to be strong. So if there are things that you want to approach and you're feeling really enthusiastic about them, that's good, but don't try to do too much. Now on the 9th, Mars, the planet of passion, of drive and individuality, moves into your 5th house. Now Mars going through the 5th house is about as good as it gets, because the 5th house is about our sex appeal. It's very Leonian, so it's very much about glowing up your personality and charisma. And over the next 6 weeks, if you do want to interact with people in a more social way, that certainly will be a help to you. However, Mars goes into an instant square with Pluto. Mars is very impatient, potentially. Pluto is very much about that power, but not always power that's shown obviously. In terms of the overall zodiac, Pluto in the 11th house is asking us to think about how we connect and also our higher values. For you in house 2, it's about everyday money, and Mars in 5 could be about risk and speculation. It's not the best of times to be too free and easy with your resources. Now, because you can be pretty cautious, maybe it's someone close to you that wants to be more speculative, and you may find you're saying, look, this isn't necessarily the best idea. And that could create some tensions over the following few days. But between the 14th and the 16th, Venus and Mercury come together in your 6th house. And because Mercury governs the 6th house, very Virgoan, your appreciation of detail, but your delivery of the message with a good slice of personality is something that someone could find compelling, particularly if you're having a discussion that day. But the 17th sees Venus and Mercury move into your 7th house. Now, I've got to be truthful with you. This is absolutely magical, because Mercury in the 6th house can be a bit of a brittle influence. It can be a bit tense. And Mercury moving into the 7th house makes it easier to be a bit more detached. So if people see things differently to us, it's like, okay, that's their opinion, it's not mine, that's fine. 6th house, it can be irritating if someone doesn't see the details that were important to you. Now, Venus moving into the 7th house is one of its best transitions of the whole year, because Venus rules the 7th house in astrology. So this brings a more harmonizing and more equilibrium building momentum into the month. And that's not to say that things will be entirely jagged, with Saturn squaring up with Venus and the Sun, or Pluto squaring up with Mars, but if there has been some cross words, this will be like a healing balm. But there's more, Capricorn, because on the 20th we have the summer solstice. The summer solstice ushers in cardinal quadrant 2, Western tropical astrology based on the seasons. This is a 13-week period, which for you is going to be a critical phase for relationships, but particularly over the first 4 weeks. Now, the Sun moving into the 7th house is also good for setting your boundaries, whereas Venus can be charming, keen to please, wanting to find those points of agreement and consensus. Mercury, fine, let's just talk it over. The Sun can be firmer. The Sun wants us to get what we need, but it can also give us an opportunity to connect to others and understand what they need. But it's such a sweet set of influences at this stage. And I have to say, with Mars in your 5th house, which is very much about you showcasing what makes you very alluring, the 7th house is how you relate. That's a fine mix if you are wanting to evolve your relationship sector as this month goes on. But on the 22nd, we have a full moon in your sign. Did you know the moon in Capricorn is detrimented? Therefore, the moon is at the weakest point of its whole journey. And what we're getting here essentially is the Sun wants you to focus on what you can achieve in a connecting way. The moon wants you to focus on what's right for you. And the moon in the 1st house can make us a little bit caught up in our needs. So there's an imbalance. Also, there's a further complication. Neptune, which I said at the start of the month would be the key planet for you because it's on that 4th house cusp, it T-squares this particular full moon. So things may be a little bit confused. If you're trying to talk something over, particularly around a relationship matter, it's possible that someone hears a completely different account from what you're actually intending them to hear. So with Saturn, your ruler, going retrograde on the 29th for 20 weeks to the 15th of November, choosing your words carefully will be very important at the end of this month. But I don't want to downplay what a glorious ending to June this can be. So I feel the big news story will focus on that new moon conjunct Venus on the 6th. Possibly with some astrologers, they will pick up on Jupiter's trine with Pluto. But don't underestimate for you personally in your solar situation that as this month goes on, the rich pickings really develop as the month draws to a close. And really, in a way, the moon being in your sign on that full moon is just a reminder that however much we like someone, however much we want to please people, however much it's nice not to rock the boat, however much it's nice to have equilibrium in our lives, not if it means giving away our autonomy or our agency or our power. So we can be too much of a people pleaser. There could be a little bit of that at the end of the month. So I actually feel the full moon is protective for you. It's making you conscious of where you need to stand in that own power and protect it. And remember, as I said, the sun can give you an opportunity to reinforce your boundaries. So in other words, say what you won't accept as well as what you will accept. But if you're wanting to forge some very constructive partnerships, maybe romantic, maybe business, maybe within a business you work for, there is a great opportunity to do that as this month comes to a close. I hope you have a wonderful June, Capricorn. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please help it grow by pressing that sub button. And also, if you want to ascend above this zodiac forecast and embrace the power of more serious astrology, if you give me 3 pieces of your personal birth data, or 2 if you don't know your time, of time, date and place of birth, I can produce for you your life roadmap report. This will give you searing insights into the patterns that are played out in your life so far, but also a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. There's 30% off if you get my package with your 12-month forecast. That's the moving transits in the sky interacting with your unique natal map. Now, if you know your tropical astrology well, check out my draconic version, your soul, your karmic package. This is absolutely gripping. Discover what you brought into this world and how your tropical astrology helps you to evolve it. But understanding the roots of your being can open your perceptions to such a huge degree. Please see the link below for more.